NATO defense ministers are meeting for a second day in Brussels to address defense spending and strengthening the alliance's defense posture. The acting U.S. Defense Secretary is also expected to brief them on the Iran crisis.
In yesterday's meeting, they decided on how they would respond to Russia if it doesn't act on a decades-old nuclear arms control treaty. So let's join our correspondent, Ira Spitzer, in Brussels right now. Ira, what's the latest from the meeting now? Is Iran on the agenda?
Well, Iran isn't on the official agenda of this NATO ministerial meeting. However, we heard from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg yesterday that he expects Iran to be discussed by the defense ministers today. And we heard again ahead of the meeting from the American Acting Secretary of Defense, Mark Espers, that he was planning to try and rally support for the U.S. position in Iran or towards Iran at this NATO meeting. Now, the Defense Department, the U.S. Defense Department stressed that their goal still is to negotiate with Tehran and is not necessarily looking for military allies here at the NATO meeting, but certainly a very dangerous situation, a very explosive situation given the events of the past couple weeks. So that's something that everyone here will be watching closely. We're expecting to hear some statements from both the American Acting Defense Secretary and NATO Secretary General soon here, as well as any new developments on that situation with the Russian missiles.
Yeah, speaking of Russia, NATO is meeting them next week to follow up on Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Does it look like there's any hope of progress on that?
Well, exactly. There is a meeting scheduled for next week, but that is somewhat of a lower-level meeting. All the signs right now do point to Russia's intention to not give up that missile system and to themselves to leave the treaty because the Americans are planning to do so on August 2nd if Russia does not scrap that nuclear or that missile system that could be used for a nuclear strike. In NATO's opinion, Russia denies those allegations that it violates the treaty. So really coming into an end game here. NATO is preparing, I think, for a post-treaty future, but there still is at least some hope that Russia and the United States could come to some sort of a compromise here.
Okay, thanks for that update. Iris Spitzer speaking to us from Brussels.